The thing is just making sure that it's something that's in alignment with what your purpose is. Because a lot of times, like, you can buy a business, and it's a matter of if you're looking to buy a business and you desire to be an absentee owner, or if you're looking to buy a business and you knowing that you're going to have to put your elbows in it to get it to where you desire. And so I'm thinking, like, when you talk about the trust issue, it's like we have to, like, I think, get through, like, fighting through the moniker that we are less than in business because of that.
Mhm.
So we don't have to state certain things. Just go do business. Do
Yeah.
business at a high level. Go do business on a level that, breed, that speaks quality, that speaks character, that speaks integrity. And the fact that who you are already is substantiated in itself at the end of the day. We still young. You gotta think, we just got civil rights back in the 1960s and 70s.
That's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that was like from a 400-year setback. So think of all
Yeah.
the communities that we've tried to create and implement and grow. Shoot, if Tulsa was sustained the test of time, what would it be right now?
Exactly. This is the Commercial Builders Network, where trust is restored, power is reclaimed, and legacy is built. Let's get to work. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of the Commercial Builders Network. My name is Tanisha Reed, and I'm your host. Today, we have the amazing James Kynes from Rushman Moore Real Estate Group. He is a commercial real estate advisor and a business broker. How are you doing today, James?
Man, I'm wonderful. I'm thankful. Thank you for having me. How are you doing
No
today?
problem. I'm blessed. Little trying to wake up a little bit, but I'm good. I'm ready. We about to get
You
this
just not waking
going.
up. You just not waking
Okay.
up. I ain't
No,
gonna
I
get
haven't.
started.
Look. I just been in these streets. I'm not in the street. I'm lying. I just been
In
working,
commercial
working
streets.
hard.
We've been in these
Look,
commercial streets. We've been grinding
these
these commercial
commercials.
streets. You gotta be in the
Yeah,
street. You
yeah.
gotta be in the streets in commercial. Like, I don't know what people think. Like, you can do this, like, sitting behind. I guess you can. That's the beautiful thing about commercial. Like, it's so many different ways you can do it. So if you
Absolutely.
choose to work the streets, I'm a similar street worker too. So I'm out grinding
Street,
and networking and
street
meeting
worker.
people too.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, can you please introduce yourself and tell the people what you're known for?
I am James B. Kynes Jr., commercial real estate broker, business broker from Atlanta, Georgia, specifically Decatur, Georgia, as better known as the East Side, as they say, Decatur where it's greater. Um, Grew up, I grew up a little bit around Georgia. My pops was a minister, so we moved around the state a couple of times. But Decatur is home, and it's kind of where I planted roots, and was established and developed for the most part.
How did you get your exposure to entrepreneurship and into this commercial real estate game?
So the exposure to entrepreneurship came at an early age. That would probably be spearheaded by my grandfather, my mom's father, James Smith, who was a scrap metal specialist in Cordell, Georgia, and who worked his own business, moving scrap metal. And he would hustle like watermelons and some other things. He had a truck, so he made his truck work for him at the end of the day. And so, he was entrepreneurial, but, at the time we didn't really like define it and, describe him as like entrepreneurial. We didn't know that that's what he was. It kind of, took him a little more exposure, understanding what that actually looked like, and maturing to understand, like, shoot, this man had cash all the time, and, he pretty much moved at his own schedule, like, and he did a great job kind of exposing us to somewhat of what he did. But I was more, enamored by just, the amount of self autonomy that he had and being able to kind of like have his own and own his own at the end of the day. So personally, that will be like my first foray from seeing like that level of entrepreneurship, from an early age. Now as I matured, and knew that kind of at some point that, I believed that entrepreneurship was a lane for me. I didn't know exactly what that looked like. I mean, it was that's been a that's been a journey in itself. And I think like that's part of the journey of entrepreneurship is the actual understanding like what that lane is for you, that's
Hmm.
specifically niched out that you can kind of like operate in, that gives you like a sense of grace and a sense of, confidence that you were able to operate with who you are, and continue to grow and elevate, into like new versions of yourself while growing into your career path. So for me, it kind of started back at probably around my freshman year of college. Probably I had a best friend who was a performing artist, who approached me one day about managing him and his career. And we kind of, began down that path. And that four-way and led into like just exposure. You were able to meet people on that path, on that transition. I worked at college. I ended up working at the college radio station. Ended up getting the internship with a major record label early on. And so it's kind of like just being exposed. Now you're being exposed like different levels of like the entertainment industry, and that transition into the funny thing, like I just said Kirby vacuum cleaners, like door to door. That was entrepreneurial. Like I didn't, I knew it was entrepreneurial. I knew I could kind of create my own schedule, but I didn't know like the level of the discipline that it fully took, to do, entrepreneurial work. And so I had this path that kind of just steered me down, like doing certain things that kind of were hustles. Some people looked at them as not really jobs. They would like look at you like you need to go find a real job per se. I'm like a real job. Like, and it was funny because a lot of classes and a lot of things I was in, like they wouldn't talk about having to talk against having a job, but they
Mm-hmm.
would definitely position it in a way that, when you talk about it, make sure you position it like the meaning of that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so now I work in some sales jobs and they'll be in there talking about you got a job, having a job means just over broke. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like, and so some of this stuff get kind of staying in your brain and you just like, well, I don't really want a job. Like, I
Right.
would prefer, I definitely desire to have a career. And I would say probably like around like, I think I was like 12 or 13. So a couple things happened around 12 or 13 when I was like 12 or 13. Like I had my first quote unquote job, but I worked with the entrepreneur. It was a guy, he was an electrician. He exposed me, I think, to entrepreneurship again. Another, a man who controls his schedule, who controlled his time, who, he charged his prices based on the work that was being done. He gave me an opportunity to work with him that summer. Um, while I was in Rome. And that was a very eye-opening experience, because it exposed me to some things I thought I didn't want to do. I often look back and was like, well, damn, I probably would have stayed on like the electrician path with Mr. Moore at the time. Like, I may have owned my own electrical company. I may not have to be under the houses no more. I may not have to dig the ditches in the trenches no more. Like, I wasn't looking at it at the time, 13. I'm looking at like, he put the shovel in my hand, put the backhoe in my hand, and like dig, like crawl under. Like, I'm now doing like the manual labor work that as he was aging out of the career, I'm now doing like the labor part, which, at the time I'm not recognizing like this is part of the process of learning the industry, right? You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
this is how you get your lessons. And I was just like, I don't have no desire crawling underneath people, crawling in crawl spaces and under the trailer parks. That's kind of left me, but I appreciate it for what it was though. I appreciate the exposure into like entrepreneurship from that capacity.
Did
The
you say
next
his
thing that
name was
happened,
Moore?
his last name was Moore. His name was James Moore. Yep.
Is that part of the name that of your business name? Was that inspiration?
Kind of, but not fully. That's more
Okay, sorry.
coincidental. Yeah, that's more
Okay.
coincidental. Yeah, that's more coincidental. But I do give him credit for helping me, giving me the exposure into like the entrepreneurial path of work. And so the second thing that happened, I think, over that summer was like, my older brother approached me that summer. And my dad used to cut our hair like growing up. And it got to the point where my older brother was like, "Hey man, can you go get the clippers and come cut my hair for me?" And I was just like I don't know how to cut hair, bro. Like, what you like? You better off letting him do it. And he was like, man, he was like, I just don't want him to do it. All right, so for whatever disdain he had at the time, as far as not wanting my dad to cut his hair, like I was the more adventurous, I was the adventurous kid. Like, so I knew when my dad hid the clipper, I went and got him. And my dad came home, and my brother and both I had bald heads, so he kind of knew we had figured out what the clippers was, and we experimented with them, and it didn't end up well. But the long and short of that, I ended up becoming like the neighborhood barber. Like, people in the neighborhood like wanted me to start kind of cutting their hair. And so that was a seed that was sown into like part of my career path that you talk about the real estate, like the real estate wouldn't, I don't think happen for me in this capacity had it not been for that skill set because, a little fast forward, I was called into like barbering as a profession, outside of corporate America. And
Mm-hmm.
once I was barbering as a profession, I was always working in transactional capacity. Even when transitioning from working with a business management firm into going into like the barber industry, like two different, completely different world. But some kind of way, like the divinity of the whole thing was able to kind of like create a thread for me to where I saw like how they were going to bridge a gap for myself moving forward because I still like transactions. Like I had made the most money I made like doing transactions, and that was like I knew like you can make a lot of money in sales, and I knew that sales was a great place to do that in, and so it was from barbering that I was doing trying to do transactions from behind the chair that led me into getting a real estate license, which was kind of like preluding me into becoming a business broker because that's what I was kind of doing. I was trying to put together deals behind the chair. It just didn't have a official title to it until I was exposed to what that actually was, and that was more of a desire for me to really want to do that aspect of business and business transactions. And it just so happened that it commercial real estate happened to be a offset of business brokerage, and so we were able to grow that aspect of our career moving forward.
Awesome, awesome. So you run brands like Kings of Atlanta Grooming Lounge, the J. Rushman Group, and of course the Rushman Moore Real Estate Group. What
Yep.
pulled you into this direction of commercial real estate and using business strategy?
So I used to work, like I was saying, in corporate America. I sold office equipment. And at the same time I was selling office equipment, I was, managing my friends. And I transitioned like the personal management into business management when I was working with the business management firm. Working with those guys and what we did, we worked with athletes and entertainers on helping them like really create like, lifestyle strategies around the salaries that they were bringing in. But doing business to business like transactions, like even from corporate America, is kind of like what really like triggered the mindset of, once I got into real estate and began like looking down this path, like what did that look like? Well, I did sell, I did residential for a little while. I was very general. But I came in knowing the intent was to ultimately operate in a commercial capacity because the thought process on how I like to do business is more business to business consultation work. Like my background was in marketing. So I was generally like always like generally selling products or positioning products from a marketing sales capacity. However, it's like the process of consultation, finding the strengths, finding the weaknesses, understanding like the market, understanding what the client did. It really like open up the whole genre of how that helps other individuals that did not have like the experience moving forward. Now, the part that kicked in as far as the commercial real estate part kicked in was because I had my own brick and mortar businesses. We talk about the grooming and the barbering side. Like, so working in the barber shop, I was able to open and create my own shop. I created a grooming lab, the spa for men, and that was in Buckhead. And so now as I began to transition out, I understood like everything that I went through trying to get into a space, the things I didn't know, the things I had to learn getting into a space. And I would start realizing that, hey, it may be other business owners who need this type of guidance or consultation when it comes to site selection and getting into spaces because we would always end up having like really good locations. Like we'd be in really good locations, we'd be in position, relatively well so that we can actually like move business forward. But it was like it was like an aha moment. Like, okay, I think this may be a niche. And so kind of being able to combine the threads of tenant rep where we help business owners like create and implement site selection strategies. Um, that and the thread of business brokerage kind of for us ran along the same timeline because entrepreneurship does not necessarily always have to start with you creating something from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
You can go in and you can buy a business that's already cash flowing, along something that you like, so that's a part of the consultation is understanding like the capacity of the tent of the client. Like, is it going to be more advantageous for you to go and, get a space, build it out, staff it up, or, could you take that same money, put down, use it as down payment on the SBA loan and go and buy a business that's already cash flowing that the bank is going to be better to finance because it's already existing. It's already proven. They'll finance something that's already moving quicker than they'll finance your idea trying to get started. Now, I'm not saying that it's not capital available for startups, the people trying to get started. But what I am saying, like once you've proven cash flow, once you've proven a system and proven a business model, then it's a lot easier for them to want to finance that business that way. So you may have the capital to make that happen.
So before we go into your business brokerage,
Mhm.
um, before we dive into that, we're going to go back a little bit. You said that you started on the residential side. What advice would you give to a realtor or real estate agent who is looking to transition from residential and then transition smoothly into the commercial side?
Know your why. Um, and I think the biggest challenge that most transitioning or aspiring transitional agents have is trying to figure out like, okay, well, what I'm gonna do over here? Like, I want to do commercial, but I don't like what does that look like for me? Like, and it's kind of like one of those things. Like, the only way that question can really be answered for you is through exposure, right? You have to kind of be exposed to like the different types of transactions. And so I often like ask the questions like, what do you do currently that you're good at outside of real estate? Because see, the difference with residential and commercial is like you can create a niche in commercial around something that you're already doing. It
Mm-hmm.
was fine. I was just talking with a agent yesterday. I had a meeting with the agent yesterday. And he has a background in like curating like art shows and events and things of that nature. And his interest kind of came into commercial real estate based on him helping business owners like really like elevate their experience, their customer experience by creating these types of events and things of that nature. So now what that began to like elevate for him was now, okay, if I'm gonna do pop-up shows and pop-up locations for like certain artists and things of that nature, like now I got to go find a space for them to do that. And so he began like, operating in a sense of site selection for his curated shows and for what he was doing. So we're having a conversation and similarly asked like the question, like, okay, I think I may want to go do residential as well, just to kind of get um, his idea was doing residential to get, I guess, used to the industry, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
get some experience moving forward. And I'm like, well, if you don't really want to do residential, you're kind of gonna be wasting your time because you can
Right.
curate business around what you already doing and create you a niche in commercial around what you're doing. And so I had him
Mm-hmm.
really like break down like to me, describe to me how you would do what you do. And he kind of like went through the whole elevator spiel on what he would do. And I would say, well, okay, well now add on top of that, you do that through the platform of commercial brokerage. When he said it, it was like, oh wow, yeah, you empower yourself and you empower the conversation. Now you added a layer to the conversation that now somebody knows that you offer more than just curated show. You can actually help them find a space now for their business, and we can help them
Oh,
negotiate terms to get them situated. So it's now like you can go talk to 20 business owners about that. And you talking about going to find 5 people to give you a headache about going to find a house. Like,
yeah.
it's a difference in mindset, difference in mentality. So my number one advice is like, just understand your why. And don't look so far trying to find something that you may already have the key to doing yourself that you just have to tap into by adding like, certain levels to the conversation piece that you have going on. So I like to tell residential agents that it's not a prerequisite. Like you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to go and sell so many houses or sell a house that at so much volume or be so productive for a residential firm for somebody to say, oh, you know what, you should go do commercial now. Like, no, it's about
Yeah.
understanding how you like to do business and knowing that's how you want to flow. So I learned early on that like the difference of business to consumer and business to business is a lot more about how you can communicate solutions. and how well can you maintain and manage emotions of a prospect or prospective client? And is that, and your ability to manage those emotions, is that something that you have a desire to do, from a business capacity moving forward? So, I mean, like taking people to look at houses and, having people like sell their house that they have emotional attachments to and things of that nature. People don't want to, do what they would have to need to do to get that done. Sometimes it's more like pulling teeth, and you deal with
Yeah.
this somewhat in the business sales side.
Hmm.
I got a piece of content that's about to drop real soon that talks about the difference of your the true value of your business, and the sentiment value that you have in your business, right?
Hmm.
And so that looks like, when you're dealing with business sellers, people looking to sell their business, and they say they want to get X amount for the business, right? Okay, so now we have to go through the process of vetting the financials, right? So now we're looking at the financials, and now the numbers don't lie. So that's the whole thing about the business side. Like the numbers don't lie. If the business doing this, the business doing this. Outside of us having to pull back, like whatever you may have included from your personal expenses that don't even need to be in the overall quote unquote business side of the thing ledger when we're trying to evaluate the business to get it sold. So now it's like, okay, I want X amount, but the paperwork saying that it's worth this amount. Now, can we create the multiple to try to get you closer to what you desire to have? Yes. But, some of that is sentiment. Some of
Hmm.
that is you feeling like I done been working this business for 20 years now and I need to get out what I need to get out. And I love the business and I don't want to, okay, that's sentiment. That's not add
Hmm.
true value to your business because you love the business because you done raised it for 20 years.
Hmm.
So so it is that level of emotion when it comes to the business side of this business sales side, which is similar to residential, but the fact, and even from a residential side, like you got it's a similar people. I want so much for my house. Well, what's the market saying?
Hmm.
Okay, what the market is saying and what you can actually get for your house is two different things. And so, like with people when they're trying to sell a house, and that creates that emotional friction. So now,
Hmm.
like they're like they don't want to sell the house because they don't think you know what you're talking about now. Because in their mind, they think their house worth X amount because they got love for the house. That's sentiment. Your sentiment does not create value for the property. It does not create value for the business. It's what the love that you have for it, which is invaluable at the end of the day because
Hmm.
you spent time with it. You spent time
Right.
cultivating it. But when you're trying to cash out on it, you got to be realistic, and that takes like a true level of stripping down like what's actually going on so that you know what the true value of the business is moving forward. So it's just about how you want to manage. I'd much rather manage that dealing with a business owner than dealing with somebody trying to sell a house. That's
I completely concurred. My business strategy
so,
has completely changed for that. I started out doing on the insurance side, mortgage protection and just writing regular policies for everyday people to now I consult on business valuations, business succession planning, retirement planning. How do we make sure the value of the business is still there once you walk away from the business, or are you the business itself? And how do we readjust that so that in the case that you want to actually sell the business and get what the business is worth, the value is there. And it's so different when you're dealing with a person where it's based on numbers and not emotions. So I
y'all here,
completely
y'all,
agree.
y'all here, Tanisha trying to be y'all here, Tanisha trying to be my business partner over here
You
on
know,
her podcast. Y'all here, right?
got to put a little plug in
y'all,
there real
y'all
quick.
here to be trying to be my little business partner over here. I ain't being careful, but you asking for in the universe out here. Nah,
Look.
that's
You got to
awesome though,
plant them
man.
seeds.
Hey man, we
So
need to talk. We might need to have a conversation. We're trying to grow. So I know that's one of your questions, like what we headed to. So
absolutely, absolutely. So, inside of this industry, it's known that we, our people, have a lot of trust issues when transitioning, whether it's commercial real estate period, or doing business deals. Um, what is it that you think that we're missing in the information that's needed to build that trust?
shoot, to be honest, and that's a good question. And that's deep right there, Tanisha. That's deeper than commercial real estate. That's deeper than business. That is truly cultural. Um, because those I think the threads of that was planted like way before like we were even in position to do what we're doing right now. So the question I think is like, how is it that we have elevated our education, elevated our exposure, elevated our, quote unquote wisdom and knowledge and things that, deem us that we like to, tell ourselves how smart we are and how intelligent we are, to not know the level of our history that ties into why we don't trust each other. And for all this intellect that we're supposed to have, like why we haven't created the solutions to solve it, why it's still permeating. So it's obviously, I think it's deeper than just the systemic aspects of commercial industry in itself. I think it's rooted way back to understanding like who you are and who we are as a people and why we are like we are, why we have this trust issue, why we were separated out, and why we haven't healed it to in 2025. Like so the question is, what's continuously permeating this ideal as to why we shouldn't be trusting each other. I mean, so to dive deeper into it, like yeah, um I'm experienced. I've been in business for a while. I've done transactions. I had successful transactions. And I talk to people who haven't put a nail in the building before and talk and look at you like, you sure you know what you're talking about? Like,
Mm.
I think we have created a culture where like the credibility is deemed on status of what it looks like. What someone like, you know, like you got to sell 1 million records, for example. You got to be a platinum seller artist to quote unquote have a voice in our community. For somebody to even deem you credible to say like this person know what they talking about, like, or this person is, I'm gonna listen to this person, before I listen to this person because they got $1 million in their bank, and I don't think you got $1 million, so I don't think you know what you're talking about. So like, but we deal with that a lot because people, I think, ultimately don't want to see you do better than them. I mean, and that stems back to the whole generational thing that was programmed throughout our history at the end of the day. Like, and even that's systemic in culture, like even with Black Wall Street, with Tulsa, with Rosewood, you tap in some of those communities that were very self-contained, that built economies, that created jobs, that created everything. Once they
Mm-hmm.
became so self-autonomous and looked so good and was, you had people of other cultures that were upset because they couldn't figure out how these Black people over here was looking like this, how they was living like that, and it burnt them up. And so that now, that planet in our brain, we can't have nothing that, that, and now it's kind of sad because like, we had to watch, we'll witness, us destroy each other, you know, it's kind of like self check. It's like they only got to play ball on that. So it's kind of like self
Yeah.
check. So you talk about like, we talk about the history. We talk about knowing like, kind of where we come from. Like that'll spin you into that name, the Moors, who were, indigenous, people of North Africa and throughout Africa, who ruled Spain for over
Mm-hmm.
800 years, right? These people like created like levels of they not only created but transitioned like levels of education, and and so when it comes to real estate, they conquered land, they conquered Spain, but their conquering wasn't more about pillaging land, it was more about improving systems.
Mm-hmm.
And you see already, like honestly, like these people trying to take basic Black history out of school. They trying to tell us, they trying to take the Black history that we should know just from walking up and down the street, because
Mm-hmm.
you got Martin Luther King Jr. street name after in every
Every hood.
major city. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's just history on the street.
Mm-hmm.
We ain't talking about the history that they hide and that they definitely don't want you to know about. I mean, you talk about, they talk about the dark ages in Europe and Spain. Well, the dark ages weren't the dark ages because of, like they trying to, it wasn't what they trying to make you believe it was the dark, because dark people was ruling the land. That's what was dark about the
Mm-hmm.
ages. Like
Right.
all the diseases and everything they were dealing with, the dark people came and helped get them healthy because they helped
Mm-hmm.
clean up the system in the streets and created sanitation in the streets. They brought lights and brought levels of electricity to this thing and helped them get healthy and get them back on work. So don't get it, misconstrued. So we talk about the mores and what we are. Like, yeah, I dropped more on the Rushman part from the J Rushman group when I created the division. Because I want us to understand, like, you can be black owned without really quote unquote saying you black owned, but it can
Mm-hmm.
be it's embedded in your DNA.
Absolutely.
So stop, yeah. Like I always tell people, like, um, I don't really have to tell people we black owned. It's if you go to the Secretary of the State, you see the owner. The owner is black.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it
Yeah.
is. You know it's black owned by that. You know what I mean? And so I'm thinking, like, when you talk about the trust issue, it's like we have to, like, I think, get through, like, fighting through the moniker that we are less than in business because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to state certain things. Just go do business. Do
Yeah.
business at a high level. Go do business on a level that, breed, that speaks quality, that speaks character, that speaks integrity, and let the fact that who you are already is substantiated in itself at the end of the day. So I just think, like, doing good business is a way that we're gonna be able to just heal, like, the trust issues. Understanding, like, where the trust issues come from helps you not take it so personally.
Yeah.
And I think, like, that's the part of the growth that we have to operate in. Just, hey, it ain't personal, man. Like, this stuff in our DNA is gonna take years to continue to eradicate. Why? We still young. You gotta think, we just got civil rights back in the 1960s and 70s.
That's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that was like from a 400-year head start from even being shipped over here,
Yeah.
of being set back. So I think all the
Yeah.
communities that we've tried to create and implement and grow, that, I mean, shoot, if Tulsa was sustain the test of time, what would it be right now?
Exactly. And
And
that's part of the
Rosewood.
heart, but behind the commercial builders network is getting back to that heart of those communities that we built and seeing how we thrive during those times when we on the service shouldn't have, right? But we
Right.
still, when we were actually band together and work together to build our communities, like many other communities are. So a lot of many other communities are still thriving is because they depend on each other, they trust each other, and they want to see them win as well to make their community stronger.
Absolutely.
So, what is one misconception for those for the commercial industry that is there that you want to correct?
I think the one misconception about the commercial space is that um they don't want us in it. They don't want us in the space.
Mm-hmm.
Um I've honestly, can only speak for my experience, my exposure, but um I've and I say this, like, with respect, like, but I had just as many, like, Caucasian white brothers, like, show me so much love in the game. When I call, like, if I want to show a space or if I want to take a client to see a space, they, like, very responsive, like, they very cooperative when it comes to get a deal done. Um, on the flip side, I've had, like, people that look like us that may not include, like, and that's my thing, like, trying to build, like, a commercial network, and the commercial network, that looks like us, like, let's be very careful that we don't create the same barriers of inclusion that have kept us out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what that means, for me is, like, for example, like, you may have, like, like your hair is beautiful, for example, right? But some people may not want you in the room because they think that you may bring a certain element of feistiness that, in the room, that's gonna mess it up for all of us. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if we're gonna be diversified, we're gonna speak diversity, then you gotta understand, like, we diverse as it come, period. So, like,
Absolutely.
let's not cancel each other out based off of our own, biases towards each other. And then
Yeah.
paint the picture that, well, they don't want us in the industry. They don't want us in the game. Like, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
no, some of y'all be hating on some of us being in the game too, if you want to,
Yeah.
being honest. Like, and so
Yeah. Wanting to be
so
the
that's,
token black person.
you
I'm
want
the
to be
only
like,
one.
yeah, they want to be the only
Mm-hmm.
one, and that's like, I'm just being, that's a real thing, that happens. Like, and So the misconception is to think that all of them is against you and all of us is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't, that's not necessarily the case. And I don't say that, I just say that to be real. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think like we all have room to continuously grow, and
Absolutely.
understand how to expand ourselves in a way that we provide, a platform to help our brothers and sisters, grow in the industry, so that everyone grow. Like, one thing about me having my own firm and being a boutique firm is like, I can hire who I desire to hire. You know,
Mm-hmm.
now that's matured over the past couple of years, because hiring is something that, once you bring somebody on, they under your umbrella, you have to spend time. It's like some mentorship that taking place. It's some availability that has to be there as well. And so now you have to start learning as a broker, like, what does that look like for you? Like, bringing on agents under your firm, like, how does that help your firm grow? How does that help you manage and maintain, like, what you're looking to do as far as building the firm? And are they in alignment with what you're trying to do with the vision that you have, that looking to execute? So that's kind of like, so for me, I was like, I like to keep an open mind, because I want to be able to hire people that not necessarily that look like me, but I want to be open to say, are you a good fit for what we're trying to do? That,
Absolutely.
and you happen to look like me. Like, if we happen to, but I don't have to exclude you, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I don't like women with twists in their heads, or I don't like dudes with beards with gray in them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
nothing now. It's all about culture for me, and how we add like value based on our own unique abilities and our unique skill sets. And regardless of the preconceived notions of, shit, I have people might be scared to talk to me because I'm a bald head chocolate dude. You know what I'm saying? They think I might look intimidating, like I might
Mm-hmm.
chop them in the throat or something. Like, I can't do nothing. I can't do nothing about that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you spend time to talk with me and get to know me
Right.
and reach out to me, right? And that's exposure. And so if I'm not, put myself in vulnerable positions to be exposed, then someone will never know, and we'll miss opportunities. Like, maybe money we supposed to can make together, that we don't get past our preconceived notions about each other, that get us through the point to where we actually have a conversation about what one may need, so that we can, cross reference our needs analysis and see what we can, you know cross section and make something happen with it. So it's just about making things happen and being open minded about it.
Awesome, awesome. Switching gears a little bit.
There you go.
For a first-time business buyer, what are the top three signs that this business has a real opportunity?
For a first time business buyer looking to buy a business, what are the top three signs that they have that particular business is a good opportunity?
Yes.
Um, I would say the first thing is like the ownership that's in place currently, and how they have maintained the business moving forward. Like, all of this kind of comes out, and quickly initially when we begin like requesting like financials and start our initial due diligence. That's one of the good things. The second thing is if those numbers that you are seeing are positive numbers, that the company have shown growth over the years. They maintain like payroll. They've done certain things that keeps the business in good standing, with the employees, the community, the tenants, the landlords, the banks, the debtors, whoever they're doing business with. And the third thing is, just making sure that it's something that's in alignment with what your purpose is. Um, because a lot of times, like, you can buy a business, and it's a matter of if you're looking to buy a business and you desire to be an absentee owner, or if you're looking to buy a business and you knowing that you're going to have to put your elbows in it to get it to where you desire. So if you buy a business, um, minus the first two reasons, and be something that you just like to do, say, um, are you willing to work in that business? Like, and how much work are you willing to put in that business? And what that means, like, do you have like the capital set aside? Do you have like the resources available to go in and actually do what's necessary to keep, to improve the culture of it? Meaning, do you have time? Like, do you have the time to really go in there and do that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
because If you buy a business and you don't have time to go in there and improve the business, then you bought a liability because the
Mm-hmm.
business is if it's doing marginally well and your intent is to help it improve the cash flow, but you're not there to improve the systems to help it improve the cash flow, then eventually you're going to say, okay, I don't want the business no more. You're going to want to sell it. So
Mm-hmm.
do you have the time to dedicate to go in to improve the infrastructure of a business if it's something? And if you're buying a business, like I think you should automatically already be looking at ways you can go in and improve it because you want to go in and if if the ultimate thing is to go in is to sell it, you want to see the areas where you can go in and improve the value of it so that you can sell it to a higher end buyer because you've improved the quality of the experience of what's going on with that business.
So I have a heart to one day own a storage facility, right? And I've seen some research on where it's like, well, maybe the cheapest way to go about it is like doing drive-bys to smaller storage facilities, being that there are a lot of boomers that, either retiring family might not want to take over the business. It might look like it need a little assistance. What are your thoughts behind a business that looks like it's on the decline, but it leaves rooms for some more like creative funding with the owner and stuff like that.
I love it. I mean, it's business. It's again, it's about where you are as the person looking to procure that business. Like, do you have the energy to really put into it? Like, do you have the capital resources? Do you have the vision? And if you have the vision, do you have the team to execute the vision? Do you have like the right space planners, the right architects, the right developers, the right construction team? Like, do you have like these people in place to go in and improve like upon the vision that you see? I mean, quietly, those are like the best, some of the better investments because there's so much margin to improve. Like you buy some almost pennies on the dollars. Now, again, it goes back to your resourcefulness. Like, can you put together the team to go in there and improve the space, to your specifications, uh, give in your vision with the amount of money that you desire to spend in it to turn around to attract the client that you are trying to put into it. So if you're trying to improve the value of the client, you're looking for a high end client, then yeah, you're gonna have to put in the work. But that, once you run those numbers, you kind of know like what that target is for that client to look like. And now you improve the status of a business. So now you taking like, for example, a C class building and made it a B class, maybe an A class. Like, so its value ain't gonna be the value increase is gonna be in the cost per square foot. So now you taking a C class building, bought it for a certain price, put X amount of dollars into a square foot. Now you can sell it for what you can get a B plus building for. You're making money.
Hmm.
So when you are someone looking to buy maybe like a value add for your portfolio, for example, right? So you only buy performance. So if it's a class A building or class B building that goes on the market, it's performing well, meaning that it's about 80 to 90% occupied. The cap rate is strong cap rate, but they just trying to one company maybe want to get that building off their books, right? For whatever their accounting purposes are. Like, I mean, we don't know. Like, they may
Hmm.
on carry over so much, like in the next fiscal year, they need to start reducing their asset load. We don't know why they want to sell the building, but if it's a Class A
Right.
building, like another buyer that's gonna go buy that building, they're gonna go buy it because it's performing, right? And
Hmm.
whether they don't have to put the improvements in it right away, um, and they may require that the person that's selling to put the improvements in it before they buy it. You know what I mean? And so like all those things kind of like, part of it, but it's never it's the only bad deal is if you don't do your research and you don't have a plan to execute the vision at the end of the day. Like that's when that's a bad situation.
So I'm assuming it's easier to get funding for a business that's already in play than it is for a business starting from scratch, correct?
That's very relative.
Mm.
Um, because a new business with great ownership, with great great credit score, a business credit score, strong business plan per se can get funded. A bank will fund that. Some banks lend off of projections, some banks lend off of hard assets. Some banks lend off collateral. Some financiers they are open to like JVing. Some do seller financing. So it's so many different ways to like get a deal done. Um, but typically like a cash flowing business, something that's already cash flowing, um, banks are happy to do those. But here's the thing: there are certain banks that are happier to do certain deals than other banks. Um, like for example, like uh, some banks don't like financing churches,
Okay. Hmm.
right? But some banks are happy to finance churches. Um, Now, do they charge high interest rates and higher rates? I don't know why they charge God people more interest than they charge these regular folks out here. You know what I mean? And like God can't buy your bank if that's what He chose to do at the end
All
of the
right
day. You know
now.
what I'm saying? But you gonna charge the church people more interest rate than you charge the regular. But it's financing and it can be done.
Hmm.
Strong member roll. Strong bank statements showing, you have cash flow coming in, versus the cash flow. It's a numbers game. So a lot of banks are going off of the numbers that you're showing on paper. So certain businesses are better, can be better financed through like maybe SBA loan, which comes with its own set of like requirements and I don't want to say limitations, but they have their own criteria on how some of those deals are financed and funded. And so yeah, a business that's cash flowing will get funded uh quicker than a startup with non-structure.
Okay.
But
That's good.
a startup with structure, and a plan stand just as good of a chance to getting funded as a cash flowing business.
Awesome. When should a business owner start preparing to sell their business?
Honestly, when they open it, um, you know, I mean, again, we go back to the sentiment of these things, right? We
Hmm.
start a business because we think we got a great idea and it looks good, and we get in it, and the business start happening, and we have to start working the business. And your intentional goal is not to work the business, unless you just love doing what you do. Like if you're a
Hmm.
baker, right, and you open up a bakery, and you love what you do, right? You don't mind going to work, prepping and doing those necessary things. You still need a business partner to help you run the business to do it
Hmm.
effectively and efficiently. And that looks more like even possibly like helping you create like maybe a chain or something. So structurally, like I think like starting off initially is where I think is where you desire should be setting up to sell your business from the start. And that means like having a good accounting, having good bookkeeping, understanding like, hey, I know a lot of accountants and the financial people say, if you have a business, spend out your business so that you can, itemize your expenses and maximize your tax write-offs or whatever. That's true, great, and that's great and fine. But when it comes to selling your business, a lot of stuff gonna come out of like what you probably shouldn't have been spending in your business,
Hmm.
because it's not it's a takeaway from it's an add on from like what the value is of the actual
Hmm.
business. So having good bookkeeping up front, can always help increase like the odds of you really like preparing yourself to move forward. So, but if you don't, and if you come into the mind like, hey, you just want to make a transition, you want to start, looking to selling the business, that's when bringing on an advisor can be advantageous to you, because a lot of things are going to take place as far as like you evaluating your business, getting the true value, understanding what that looks like. So having organized tax documents, organized balance sheet preparation, organized profit loss statements, and having those a record for like the past 3 years is like, anybody that's going to start evaluating your finances, whether a bank is going to fund somebody else to buy your business, they're going to want to see it. So they want to see,
Absolutely.
they want to make sure your numbers doing what they doing for the value, because that's going to dictate to them how much they're going to finance for that buyer. And it's going to dictate on how much that buyer will have to bring to the table to put skin in the game to acquire the business at the end of the day. So if you want more money for the business, you need to make the business look stronger on paper.
So,
And
have you ever had it where a client came to you, thought their business was a whole lot more than what it's worth? What was your advice to them to actually get the business either up to value or in a better place?
um, so first off, we went with evaluation so that we could see what the value actually came back at,
Mm,
based on the actual numbers on hand. And so the advice was to, in that situation was we need to firm up the business, or we either need to scale the business, um, meaning that, we need to, you need to figure out how, and scaling the business looks different for different businesses. So, like, you can have a service-based business like an electrical company or something like that, and you've been running the business as you and maybe one other person, y'all running jobs or whatnot, but you're making money. But when it comes to like selling the business, like by the time you take out what you're paying yourself, by the time you take out your expenses, your business expenses, like the value of the actual business is not as much as what you think you were selling for, because you're coming. I'm basically having to hire you now because you're a part of the service side of the business. So now I have to take in consideration based on what you're bringing in with that business. Like, is the business making enough so I can pay you a salary or pay someone like you a salary? Is it bringing in that much business, right? And so now you talk about scalability, like what that looks like. Okay, so now you have to now create crews. You might have to create two, three, four crews, or you got to hire more workers outside yourself so that now if you step outside the business, you got 5 trucks running.
mm,
You got five technicians pulling in revenue for that business, right? And so now your income of what you make don't does not necessarily negate what the business is doing. So if you sold the business, you selling the business with quote unquote 4 crews plus an available hire, which would be you. So basically five crews running. You scale the business from you and somebody else. Now you got 5 crews out there running, which increase the overall, valuation of your numbers, which makes it more sellable at the end of the day. So you had to, like, I think a lot of time, like, we had to get out of um thinking that just because we making money, I make money, like I'm an electrician, like I'm making money. Yeah, you making money, but are you making enough money? Are you scalable enough to sell your business? Like,
mm.
are you gonna be doing service for like forever? At the end of the day. So that's what the difference is, and being able to like understand like how I have to go about, you know, um, improving the business to make more money out the business has to do with how I have to scale this business to make the business make more money in a way that I can step out of the business and the business is still making money. So as long as you kind of like
Absolutely.
a key, yeah, as long as you're a key player in the business still, you haven't scaled it up when you got crews out working outside of you, then you just got a good job that you do. Yeah. You own, as they say, you own your job. You own your
Absolutely.
job. That's all. That's what you
Hmm.
you own your job. Absolutely.
Exactly. So you've been a part of some major projects across Atlanta in the commercial landscape. What is one project that you are most proud of?
Well, when you say major, I mean, I don't know about major, Tanisha. Like, I ain't gonna shortchange. I won't shortchange myself, but I won't say major. Like, it's been some major projects going on. I would think, honestly though, the one thing here in Atlanta, it's actually not even like a project per se, a construction project or real estate transaction, anything of that nature. But I think the one project that I would say, um, I'm proud to have participated in and be a part of is the real estate associates program. Um, that the real estate associates program. So like around, I got my broker license in 2015. I was still operating in a very general capacity, but I knew I had like the strong desire to transition into like commercial real estate. I had met with the business brokers, ladies who had a business brokerage firm, so they were an intricate part of me going to get my license and me understand it. But I created the company Rushman more, but I still was like lost on what it looked like for me in the commercial space, right? And I'm somebody in my opinion, I'm a relatively accomplished entrepreneur at this time. Like I done opened up I got things going on. As you say we got things popping in the streets out here. Uh, so so REAP was that organization. It was that class. It was that course that really like exposed us to like all aspects of commercial real estate. And it gave us like the blueprint to say like help you carve out that niche for you. Like so going into it, like I knew business brokerage was something I wanted to do, but I didn't understand. I didn't know that tenant rep was something I was already doing,
Mm.
and how it merged and kind of became like part of the core competencies of what we do at Rushman more. It was because I had the thread of the idea that these tenant rep tenant representation and business brokerage really walk slowly down the same path, in my opinion. Because if it's a business owner and I'm taking them to lease a space, they still have a business that eventually they may want to sell the business.
Mm-hmm.
So, or it can be someone who is looking for a space and say, hey, well, let's look at something that's already cash flow and operate. And you go from like maybe representing them from a tenant brokerage capacity to a buyer brokerage capacity, like because now we're looking to buy something, right? That has happened with me, like you know what I mean. And so just kind of understanding like what that looks like. I think REAP really like was the best. I think one of the best projects because it's ongoing. And then this exposing more minority candidates to all aspects of commercial real estate, which is, in turn giving us an internal network of people that look like us to like or tap into, if necessary, like because it's so diversified in the disciplines and the things that everyone is like relatively doing in under REAP. Like you don't have to be a quote unquote real estate agent or a
Okay.
broker to participate in the REAP program. Like you have people come in like, they discover like, hey, I like this property management thing. Hey, I like this analyst thing. Uh, I like this development side. I like the construction side. So like it's so diversified, but it has like it's a complete ecosystem of professionals in the industry that look like us at the end of the day. And so I think that's the biggest project because it's a continuation of the push to expose um qualified candidates in the thing. And if you're talking about this shit making a footprint, you talking about making a dent in the industry some kind of way, like I mean, you ain't gonna do it without numbers.
Right.
you ain't gonna do it without people at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day. Like I always tell people all the time, like I don't care if I hire somebody that worked for me and they come in and they become a millionaire working for me. I don't care about holding them back. I don't care about I'm all about how can I help you win. If you come in and you do $5 million transactions and you make a whole bunch of money, that's great. I mean, we're gonna get ours anyway off of it
Right.
because of our position as the broker. And that the whole position that we operate in, the capacity of the broker is to leverage the skill set.
Mm-hmm.
I need, I would love to have five folks out doing all of them doing $1 million deals. That means I'm working on $5 million deals at one time.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we win.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
how am I going to get those people if I'm not a part of the engine that helps keep them moving forward, help keep them qualified, that's helping them that's helping expose them to the opportunities that we can, that we have in this industry at the end of the day. So um I think that's beyond like one big construction project, that's beyond one big development project because out of that program, multiple projects can be birthed
Mm-hmm.
you know. So you can get multiple projects, multiple things going on because you have like the people in the room and you helping create the room to have those
Yeah.
people in it. And so for me, that's the biggest project that I work on. It's bigger than any transaction that I've partaken in, moving forward. It's
So
invaluable.
the perfect transition into this question. You
What's up?
carried a lot of weight on your shoulders as a leader, right? What keeps you grounded when the pressure hits?
I mean, that's God. That's
Amen.
God. I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, when you pretty much answer the call to walk in your lane, walk in like a lot of things not gonna make logical sense to people. So if you seeking like, the words say like, lean out on your own understanding. You know what
Understanding.
I'm saying? And a lot of people take that to say like, well, Well, I understand things, so what you mean? Well, what he's saying is that when you start leaning on your own understanding, your understanding is based on your ego.
Mm-hmm.
Your understanding is based on like what shit. I went to college, I went to school, I got a degree. I'm smart. My understanding is based on I done sold transactions, I done closed transactions. That's leaning on but your understanding is ego.
Mm-hmm.
His understanding is purpose and
Wow.
alignment. So if you ain't in your purpose and you're not operating in alignment, then what you really doing? You operating off
Mm-hmm.
your ego. So you had to subject yourself. I'm not in no position, honestly, like, to not be humble because I know like everything that he's brought to me, everything I've gone through and going through, he's guiding me through it. Like, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna look like what people think it should look like. You have to be at peace with that. That has to ground you. Because if you start chasing people validation, you lose focus on purpose. You start leaning on the ego for understanding. Because you gotta look a certain way for such and such to think you doing such and such. You gotta dress a certain way for such and such to think you popping out here in the streets. You gotta drive this car for them to really trust you and think you know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, I'm gonna trust on him. I'm gonna let him ground me. He gonna send me the clients that I need. He gonna send all the flow, all the abundance that is due to us is manifesting, as we speak, and so it's about being in tune to know like who he's divinely placing with you for the time for you to go there.
So, what
That
is
makes
your
sense.
ask? Oh, it makes sense. It makes
Okay.
sense.
Just want to make sure I
How
ain't
can
go too
we?
far over your head.
No,
All right, go ahead.
no, oh no, not over my head.
Not your head, but I'm just I want to make sure we
Not when you talk about the Lord. Now we in
yeah.
tune. All right.
Okay. Okay, I got you. Let's go.
So, what is your ask? Like, how can we support your business? What is your ask for the community?
My ask. Oh, I mean, you know, I just think like we're in a space right now where uh intentional grounded relationships, granular relationships are the most important thing moving forward. We obviously see that, there's so much against us. But it's so much for us. Um, and that's what I choose to focus on. I choose to focus on the what's for us. Like, what's for us? Like, how can we be for each other? At the end of the day. I may not be able to, in a particular point in time, like really do a transaction for you individually. But how, I may know you may have a group. I may be able to help you or help someone, help position you some type of way. My ask is just like let's be open, let's be honest and transparent with what our needs are in the community. Like I'm available as a tenant broker, I'm available as a business broker if you need assistance. Like if you got an idea, you want to buy a building, you want to buy a business, you want to lease a space, you want to rent space, whether it's office, industrial, uh, you know, land or retail. We're really very well versed in all of those, disciplines. Like here, Tanisha says she looking for a storage facility. It was funny. One of my agents, one of my brokers called me yesterday, and was talking to me about the potential was coming across a storage unit listing, right? So
Mm,
so when you said that, that resonated. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know like what
mm,
that might mean, but can we get you finance for it? That's the question. Like, what does that financing look like? Are we willing to go that route with you? Those types of things. Like lean on your professionals in this industry. Stop trying to do stuff by yourself all the time when you fully don't know. I mean, it's like, can you go to court and defend yourself? Absolutely. Would you stand a better chance if you have an attorney? Absolutely. Can you go to the gym and train yourself and lose weight? Probably so. But do you need a trainer or somebody to help guide and direct you? Most likely. If you don't have that discipline, if you don't have like the fortitude to, do things on your own. We work in the industry, Tanisha, where like a lot of people feel like because they ran a business or they know a little something that they don't need no help, they'll just go get the space themselves and they're gonna be okay and they'll work it out. And guess what? You might. I'm not saying that you won't or you cannot. Um, But what I am saying is that, when you hire like the right professionals to help guide your steps and help put you in position to win, that you could probably come out a lot better than you probably would doing it on your own, leaning on your own understanding. Uh, lean on those who he's called to assist you in certain capacities in the marketplace out here so that we all operate in God's divine order of what we're supposed to be doing out there. So answer your call, live your dream. I got a book coming out called 10 Rules of Entrepreneurship, Answer Your Call, Live Your Dream. I'm actually talking to my publishers now about getting this out by top of the year. Want to have it wrapped up by the end of this year. So I got a couple of weeks to go, but it's gonna be it's a guide for you. If you're an entrepreneur, an inspired entrepreneur, I would definitely, keep an ear out for that 10 rule book, 10 rules of entrepreneurship, because not only is it a guide to helping you in entrepreneurship, it's a guide helping you answer the call that I think that most of us we fight doing, that puts us in position to do what we've been divinely called to do at the end of the day. And I think that answering your call into entrepreneurship, whatever that looks like, if you need, helping you define what that looks like is what this book is going to do for you. So that you're not only doing what you desire to do, that you're doing what God is wanting you to do, and your level of expectation increases based on not just your desire, but his expectation of what he's called us out here in the marketplace to be and do.
Awesome, awesome. So, well, by the time this airs, that book should be out. So I'll make sure the link is available.
Yeah,
How do
man,
the
we're
people
working on it.
reach you?
So we're available. You can call me. Our office number. We have an office number 678. You gonna leave it out there? 678 509-3921 is our office number. You can follow us on all social media outlets. We're very relatively technical savvy. We understand like the importance of marketing and branding and using these platforms to expose our message, and being able to stay in touch. So you can follow me at James B. Kynes Jr. Just like you see it on the screen right there, James B. Kynes Jr. on all platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel. We have a podcast also that we're actually curating and cultivating called Commercial Conversation Series, where we're actually talking with business owners who actually have brick and mortar locations, talking to them on site about just aspects and about their business history, their site selection process, how they go about like finding the right location, why they choose certain locations to set up and operate their businesses out of. So we'll be highlighting like, entrepreneurs in that capacity, as well, just having like those granular conversations is about business ownership, about concepts, and about just different ways that they've been able to elevate their brands moving forward. So yeah, please follow us. Let's tap in. You can DM me as well. I'm also on WhatsApp too. I use WhatsApp. I like WhatsApp. You like WhatsApp, Tanisha?
Awesome. No, sir. You're trying to convert me, but
Work me out, Tanisha. Gotta work on you.
No, only when I'm international we use WhatsApp.
Tanisha, you international all the time.
You're right. You're right.
I know. See,
Well, thank you.
now what I do, I consult people, man. I get, saying, you mess around me, boy, you be believing in yourself a little bit.
I appreciate that. That's what we need in this good world. Well, thank
Absolutely.
you, James, for your time. It has been a pleasure having
Thank you,
you.
Tanisha. I appreciate you.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate you.